For delicate trimming, I'll use one of these smaller ones. Like if I'm doing miniatures and I want to trim them, then I'll use these. A lot of work for a miniature, but I make some nice miniatures. For drawing, I'll use a cut-off steak knife that's literally like 30 or more years old. It was my dad's, and I had another one that I like better, and it also didn't have that little chip in it. But there's some other ones, and you could use things like this for making lines, but for making lines in a piece or for my preliminary carving, I'll use a deep serrated edge. And I have a smaller one that's like the kidney beans. For making shapes that aren't just straight, I can also use these for straight or inverted. But concave or convex, I usually keep 2 ribs. We can notice that one of these is thinner than the other one. And for slip work, brush work, I usually have some wide brushes and some homemade bamboo decorative brushes and line brushes. But I will also use, just your cheapest kind of. I'm not sure what they're made out of, bristle boar or what, but you can get these for $1 or $2 depending on where you get them from, and they don't last super long. You can see they rust out, but they're good for wider areas of color. And I do use a fettling knife sometimes when I cut straight, but the fettling knives, just make sure that you get one that's stainless steel. This one bends and it stays bent, so you have to straighten it out every now and then. Also, I usually have 2 wires, and I make them myself. I cut up a broom for this one. This is a thinner braided wire, and this one's a thicker one that I use for the ones that I'm not going to trim the bottom. You can see I need to make a new one. That one's got a little bit of a tear in it. And then, of course, you need calipers. You can use a ruler, but calipers I find useful, and they're easier to use. And if you have a ruler and you don't mark it where your thing is, you get clay on it, and then you can't tell what you've done. So I usually have some stamps. I have a stamp with my initials on it, and then they're carved backwards, and then I have a decorative stamp. So the decorative stamp, this is the current one that I'm using. This one's already chipped a little bit, so it doesn't work as well. And then I have smaller and larger ones of my initials. So depending on the size of the piece and where I'm putting it, how much clay I have, when I put it on also depends, because I'll sometimes have to add a little bit of wet clay to the surface to do it, especially if it's thin and I don't want to push it in. If it's thick but too dry, then you also might need to like scratch it, put a little bit of slip there and put that in. So those are the tools. There's also this, which is actually a plaster tool for making plaster forms, but it can also be used for trimming on the wheel like that. But I usually use this, and I'll go down the side, push in and undercut, and flip it like that and get the clay off. And that's it. Thank you.